You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Terminó هناك لشوارشتايجر.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, 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 golazo.
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Soccer never sleeps, and neither do we. Kevin, welcome to Soccer Today. I'm Duane Rollins with Kevin Laramee. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We hadn't had a chance to see how we're doing on 5 rings, so we'll do it here. You mentioned bed, you mentioned sleep. I don't know what sleep is for the next 2 weeks. I don't even know what day it is. I know that today it's day 6 for Soccer Today. I don't know what that means, but it's day 6.
It's day 6 of the Olympics. I believe it is Thursday, August the 11th, according to my calendar here, which means that it is only 2 days until the Premier League starts. All right, we have a guest tomorrow. Christian Hennage just agreed to join us to preview the Premier League, so we thank him for that. We're going to focus entirely on that tomorrow because I know a lot of you out there will be excited to listen to that. In the days ahead, once the Olympics wraps up and clears our schedule, we will be doing a lot of focus on leagues. Try and tap into one of those European leagues and have a big preview. Sort of in-depth interview at least once a week for outside North America, because Kevin and I we have our North American stuff down. We're going to rely on experts to talk about that. We can add our own opinion here and there, but Christian will join us on Friday for that preview. But today we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to have what we're calling our gold, silver, bronze, and wood. And if you listen to Five Wings, you know Five Wings.
That's our new parachuting and wingsuit show.
There you go. Exactly. Or our buffalo chicken wing show or something. Yeah.
Our new eating contest show. Yeah.
Yes.
Eat 5 wings.
The gold, silver, bronze, wood medals is what we're doing on 5 rings throughout the Olympics. We do it often in that it's a style that we came up with when we first started the show. Our very first show, we used that. So we're going to take that, transfer it on to Soccer Today, and do our gold, silver, bronze, and wood medals for the overall Major League Soccer season so far. We're going to do that after we do a little brief news update. We'll start with, of course, the Dallas, FC Dallas has advanced to the U.S. Open Cup, where it is looking to win its first major trophy since 1997. That is the longest stretch by the 96 teams out there. Certainly, Dallas has been the least successful historically of the 96 teams, but they have had a great team over the past few years. For many people, they're picked to win the MLS Cup this year, but certainly it would be a nice start for them to get the first major American MLS trophy available to them, and they are 1 game away. They will play the New England Revolution in that. They won 2-1 in extra time against LA. 2 goals in 5 minutes last night to clinch that, Kevin.
You know what's surprising to me is who used to be the owner of Dallas, what family, and what's the name of the trophy of this competition?
There you go, Don.
And they never won it. So maybe this year is the year. We mentioned this 3 years ago, I think, when they were in a similar situation. Maybe this year's the year.
Exactly. And they were kind of the ugly step kids of that ownership group, because as we all know, there are multiple ownerships there across the board. But yeah, Dallas struggled for a long time, and they've been a team that gets a lot of respect amongst those that pay attention to what they're doing technically, but have always sort of struggled and been the butt of jokes when it comes to the off the field stuff and that, which isn't entirely in their control. So it would be nice, I think, for them to get that trophy. Not that I'm cheering for any American-based Major League Soccer team here in particular over the other, but I do think maybe I might lean slightly towards Dallas in that final, just because their fans probably, their fans that have been loyal to that team deserve a little bit of fun one day. And certainly the way LA approached the game yesterday, Kevin, where they're being very diplomatic on MLS Soccer, where they're saying that he was using a mixed lineup and all that. Well, the reality is that Bruce Arena, throughout his time in charge of the LA Galaxy, has shown complete disregard, if not disrespect, for the U.S. Open Cup. And so I'm not going to cry any tears that he's out of it by the loss yesterday.
Nope, exactly. And it's going to be a nice final. We're going to have Dallas maybe raising the trophy. That's our prediction for now. We'll see if that unfolds. But U.S. Open Cup, there's a ticket for the CONCACAF Champions League for next year at stake. So at least there's that reward for the team that will win the tournament.
Yeah, and the game, we didn't know where it was yesterday when we said it because we're too Olympic focused, but it has already been awarded. Right? It will be in Dallas, the final.
Oh, it's in the Dallas final, and it will be on TV this year as well.
All right. You've got the Olympic results from yesterday. The men's tournament wrapped up. Let's go quickly through that before we get into our gold, silver, bronze, and wood medals for the MLS season so far. Kevin, go ahead.
Remember Brazil when they couldn't score? Well, that changed yesterday. No, it wasn't Neymar. It was the young kids and the new Manchester City signing Jesus, because everybody loves Jesus. And 4-0 for Brazil against Denmark. The South Africa-Iraq game finished like we predicted, Duane. But it wasn't 0-0. It was 1-1. So that leaves us for the standings in Group A. Brazil wins the group, 5 points. Denmark second with 4. Iraq 3 points. Eliminated South Africa 2 points. Eliminated. Group B quickly yesterday as well were the last game. Colombia, Nigeria 2-0 for Colombia. Japan, Sweden 1-0. That leaves us with a standing right now of Nigeria still winning the group, 6 points to their two first victories. And again, Nigeria, their first game, they were stuck in Atlanta until the morning of the game. Well, their first game, literally. They had to fly to Rio. They played that night, and they beat Japan 5-4 on a cracker of a game. Nigeria wins the group. Colombia second with 5 points. Japan and Sweden eliminated. I would say that group, Nigeria winning the group, is definitely an upset win.
Yeah, they started in Atlanta, and now they have 3. No, I should.
It started from the bottom, then they're here.
Yeah, I guess that's where I was going with that. Yeah, a little Drake reference for you all there. I'm really not someone who ever should be making Drake references, but
they
nonetheless,
got 6 points, so they're at, maybe not from the 6, but they're at 6.
There you go. Look, Nigeria has maybe been the most impressive team of the group stage. We'll probably talk a bit about that more when we sort of quickly go through the quarterfinal matchups. But why don't we continue for now down the other groups to see who else will be joining them.
South Korea, Mexico. Upset here. South Korea beat Mexico. And you predicted in the preview of the soccer tournament that we did last week that we might see Fiji lose by 10-digit. Well, you were bang on. Germany 10, Fiji 0. Germany literally decided to say, you know what, we'll prove that not just other team can score against them, we can do so in a bigger fashion. And that leaves us for the standings in Group C. Upset here. South Korea first wins the group with 7 points. Germany second with 5. I guess this was the group of death after all, because Mexico, the defending gold medalists, are out after the group stage. So it's Fiji.
Yeah, surprised by that. Mexico looked good too, but then again, they had that long stretch against Fiji where they couldn't get it done. It's a strange group with that Fiji game in there, but full marks to South Korea for getting it done, Kevin. And in the final group,
it's 1-1 across the board between Algeria, Portugal, and Argentina, Honduras. That leaves us in a standings in Group D with Portugal, not surprisingly, riding the wave, at least the proverbial wave of the Euro, with 7 points on top. Honduras, the sole CONCACAF remaining team, in second place over tiebreaker Argentina. They're gone. And Algeria fourth. So Portugal, Honduras moves on. And that leaves very interesting matchup for the quarterfinals, Duane, that I will tell you right now. Brazil, Colombia. What a South American clash right there. South Korea, Honduras. Interesting matchup. 2 teams that are surprising in this tournament. Nigeria, Denmark. Nigeria has a shot of making it to the semis with a potential opponent that they can beat. And Portugal, Germany, the final is in the quarters.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll have to see there. I still think Nigeria is, based on their early play and just sort of the history of how the African teams have done very well in the Olympic tournament, is maybe making me lean towards them. It's also a nice story for those athletes, not so much for their federation, because their federation probably doesn't deserve much glory, and they probably will take all that they can get. But that's...
Well, you remember what we talked about before, that they were paying, there were the per diem payments that were late, that were questionable. There were all those questioning before they even got to Rio.
Yeah, so that's always the question there. But nonetheless, the athletes just go out and play, and that's a full credit to them to not just go lie down, because they certainly could have, and I don't know how much we really could have blamed them. So we'll certainly watch this much closer in the days ahead. We'll touch on the women's quarterfinals. We already did touch on the women's quarterfinals yesterday, but we'll probably revisit them quickly tomorrow's show as well, after we talk to Christian about the Premier League tournament. But let's move on from that now, Kevin. Did you want to just go straight through, no break, just keep going from here?
We can take a small break, and we'll be right back with our gold, silver, bronze, and wood for Major League Soccer in 2016. Hey, it's Kevin of the Sports Podcasting Network. On SPN, on top of What's the Score, the Sports News Quiz, you can find a plethora of great sports podcasts. Hardwood Radio, Gridiron Radio, Sports, It's in the Game, Scuderia F1, the second most listened to F1 podcast in the whole world, Soccer Today, live radio shows like Open Lines After Dark, MLS Postgame Show, Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast, Off the Woodworks, and much, much more. All that on the Sports Podcasting Network.com.
All right. It's the Olympics, as you know, and I know some of our Soccer Today listeners aren't Olympic fans, because not everyone is, and that's fine. Although I don't get it, but it's fine. Yeah. So quickly, how this format works: we give out our gold, silver, and bronze medals each day on our Five Rings podcast. We also give out wood medals, and what a wood medal is what we are viewing as a negative moment we want to highlight, or something to be critical of, or what have you. Like, for instance, Kevin's wood medal the day of that horrific crash in the cycling race was the course, and how it was designed, and how it led to a very dangerous situation for the athletes. That's a pretty serious wood medal. I gave a wood medal out to rain today, like the weather.
Yeah, so you got the full spectrum here.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what a wood medal is, and the rest are absolutely what you assume they are. It's our top three performances, ranked somewhat in order, although they could interchange them some days. But however, that's what we're going to do. And during the Olympics, we might do this a couple more times with different topics behind it, because it just allows us to have a little fun with it, to have a little Olympic tie-in when the Olympics are on and on a lot of people's minds. And it's a half-hour show, so I think it's just a little sprint that we can do for the next week. We only have 7 more shows left during the Olympics, so we should be able to. We should be able to power through this, Kevin.
What? More than 7? There's like
7
10.
more. Well, 7 more Soccer Today.
Oh, okay. Yes, true. Yeah, because I was like, the Olympics goes to.
We have a lot more of those. Though. No, yeah. We have today and tomorrow, and then we have the 5 next week. So there's 7 more shows that will happen for Soccer Today during the half-hour format that we're using during the games. Is all I was saying. All right. So that said, you all understand that, I assume. It's not that difficult to wrap your head around, I don't think. So let's get going, and I'll start it, Kevin, and I'll start it with my wood medal. We always start with the wood so that we can end positive. My wood medal on the MLS season thus far is the Adrian Heath firing.
Oh, interesting one.
Yeah, I don't think it was handled particularly well. There was a lot of sort of lack of sort of communication that took place down there. There was sort of a move away from their traditional sort of fan-based, like organic community that they had created in the USL that had driven so much of their success. That, to a certain extent, was inevitable, and I think it was naive to think that it wouldn't have changed at some point, but nonetheless, it wasn't very artfully handled the last couple of years. And if you I talked to the Orlando fan, and you could sense like a disappointment. It wasn't so much anger as a disappointment that the club that he had fallen in love with, and I'm trying to speak for him directly, but this is what I took from it. The club that he had fallen in love with was kind of not the same club anymore, and he'd still cheer for them. That wasn't an issue, but there was definitely a change in how, his arm's length now. It went from a club to a franchise, kind of, and that had a different dynamic with it. And the Adrian Heath firing was kind of the main process behind that. I also think that Orlando is a bit impatient, and having gone through the situation here in Toronto, warning, guys. You can't afford to be impatient in Major League Soccer, because the more times you press the reset button, it's not like our video game back in the 80s where you were dying, so you press the reset button, and then you could instantly go back and go on all cylinders again. When you press that reset button, you get a little sluggish each more time, because its ability.
That reset doesn't bring you back to the exact same checkpoint. It brings you back to the prior one every time you press it.
Yeah, and its stability is so important. So we'll see. It's only one example so far, but I just get the hunch that maybe they have this expectations that aren't realistic, and they're not willing to grind their way to the top. They want to instantly be there, and I'm not sure that's how it works in Major League Soccer, Kevin. All right, that's my wood medal. Comment on that and add your own if you like.
My wood, well, I agree with your medal as well. With the new owner making a transition and putting his people in place as well, it has a big thing to do with what's going on in Orlando. If we're going to my wood medal, Dwayne, the dum, 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 Columbus Crew Kaya Kamara situation. Oh, that was so interesting. I would have even the name of Federico Higuain to that. It happened during that 4-4 game against the Montreal Impact earlier this year. The tussle between the two, the argument, the trade, the lack of results on both sides of that trade. It's just a big old mess on both sides of that trade, but it all started in Columbus. So Columbus gets that wood medal for today. Well, for the 2/3 of the season, basically.
Yeah, well, Columbus did that. It was great for people like us.
What happened to Columbus? They were in the finals last year.
I think it shows how much stability and how much cohesion matters in Major League Soccer, that the talent levels are so close together that some kind of distraction, diversion like that, taking one aspect out of a team in that way, and Kamara had such a great season for them in 2015, it can be the difference between an MLS Cup finalist that was maybe, a little better keeping away from winning the MLS Cup last year, and puts them down at the bottom where they're absolutely one of the worst teams in the league right now. And I don't think there's any coming back from where they are based on their form lately. So yeah, that's a good one. And certainly probably the most dramatic thing that we've seen so far in this season in terms of the bad, and Columbus as a whole, as a story as a whole, is very much one of the negatives. All right, let's move into the positive side of things. And I'm going to start with my bronze medal. And Kevin, I'm going to give a dual bronze medal to Frank Lampard and Patrick Vieira. The New York City FC story this year is not someone that it's not like a warm, fuzzy story for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people out there that don't really like NYCFC because of who they're owned by. And this isn't me being blue here. This is me objectively looking at his Major League Soccer guy. They don't like the oversight of it. They don't like the sort of the farm team aspect of it. They don't like a lot of aspects to this. And I think there's a lot of people, especially the way Frank Lampard came into the league last year, or didn't come into the league, as the case may be. There was a lot of people that wanted him to fail, and there's a lot of people that assumed Vieira would fail and assumed Vieira wasn't qualified for the position. That's kind of that MLS exceptionalism attitude that comes out sometimes. Well, they're kind of both shutting people up this year, and I'm not sure, because of the circumstances that I touched on before, they get as much credit as they deserve for what's happening right now. Top of the East, from a second year of an expansion team. It's just a lot's going on there. Lampard's showing how class of a player he still is at his age, and why they would have taken the run at him. It wasn't entirely just about marketing, based on the results that we're seeing right now. And I think that we should be giving them a little bit more credit, and instead of just waiting for them to fail, because there are a lot of people out there, not just Red Bulls fans, that are waiting for this team to crash so that they can go, aha, we told you it wouldn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. My bronze medal, I'm going to travel about 6 hours, depending on traffic, northwest, heading to your neck of the woods. Talk about TFC here. I'm going to even be more specific. I'm going to give that bronze to the supporting cast of the TFC club. I will give it to the Osorios, Hamilton, to the Babulis, to the players that come in to sub, to the players that actually played while the Stars were injured or away, because there were a lot of those in 2016. And somehow, this team is still second. I still can't wrap my head around the words Toronto FC in second position in the Eastern standings right now. And they have done that feat with one game in hand on the top New York City FC. So technically, if you use the points per game and you even out everything, Toronto's first, Montreal is third, New York City FC is second. And that being said, I'm surprised by they kept a boat. They kept the boat afloat. You know what I mean? By getting the result at the right time with that supporting cast. So my bronze medal for the 2013. Geez, you're not the only one that
you
gets
don't
me
want
today.
a bronze medal 2013 for TFC, no.
No, exactly. That would be like the wood medal and a bunch of them, like a truckload of wood medals.
It's a boatload.
Boatload to go back to. Exactly. So they kept the boat afloat. And for that, they got my bronze medal. They're in contention, and now slowly you have the injured players coming back and starting to shine. Jovinko, Altidore, Bradley, and they can only go up from here, you would imagine. So hats off to the TFC supporting cast in the first 2/3 of 2016.
All right. Well, that's so nice from the Montreal guy that I almost feel guilty pointing out that 6 hours northwest of Montreal would be Timmins. But
Okay, well, very much west then. Very west. Southwest.
Southwest.
There you go.
Yeah, hashtag geography here. But at any rate, no, that's certainly the supporting cast that deserves a lot of credit. And I think that we talk a lot about TFC on the show because that's where I'm based, and it's the club that I can speak with the most knowledge of. So obviously, I don't want to belabor it. I don't hope people don't think we talk too much about it. I try very hard to try and spread it over the whole league. But yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I don't think Greg Vanney is a a miracle worker, but at the same time, he's got to get some credit for what he did with the supporting cast to get them through. There's a lot of reluctance to give that to him in this market here, and that could have been my wood medal, and almost was my wood medal, is the consistent and the resistance to positivity within the TFC supporters could have been my wood medal, and almost was, as I said. So certainly outsiders don't view TFC the same way that TFC fans seem to right now. And you can understand it, the PTSD. TFC PTSD is a real thing.
Yeah, and you always have to, when you say PTSD, you say that to prove they're for real, they have to maybe do more than another team would to get that reputation changed, because you were so far on the other side of that win and loss that you have to almost get a little bit better before they start taking you for real, like taking you for what you are.
Yeah, and people will always say, "Oh, it won't matter to the playoffs," and like I sort of resist that a little bit because I don't think that. Well, I get that they won't get the respect without the playoffs. I tend to not buy into the idea that the playoffs are that much different, is what it comes down to. It's a matter of getting the form right at the right time, and that's the art of MLS, and certainly that does matter, and it does matter for Vanney's performance. But I just don't think the overall talent level is reflective of whether you lose a playoff game or not. Sometimes that'll just happen in Major League Soccer, as I just sort of alluded to with the Columbus conversation a little bit earlier, what fine margins can mean. And TFC, that said, is in great position to be resistant towards those fine margins that sometimes derail teams in a playoff situation because of the depth that they developed over the past month. It's the irony of the season is that those injuries might be the best thing that ever happened to them.
Yeah, exactly, because now they have a rested core of skills players that will come back in the end of the season and thrive technically. So Toronto should get even better from here.
All right. My silver medal, Kevin, I'm going to move on from that, is actually, it's a Canadian reference, and it's Kyle Larin. No sophomore slump for this kid. He continues to score boatloads. Obviously, he's well supported in Orlando with Kaká. He's managed to maintain his form even with the changes down there, even with the instability down there. He has set himself up to probably move on to a bigger league. And I think that Canadian soccer fans want that to happen. And that's no disrespect to Major League Soccer or Orlando. It's simply a desire to see our Canadian players who very rarely get to play at a high level, at a highest level, get an opportunity. And I think Kyle Larin, hasn't been a Canadian in quite a while. We'll see what Alphonso Davies does in a couple of years. I don't want to put too much pressure on him right now, though. But it's been rare that a Canadian has been in a position to perhaps get to the highest level, or at least something secondary to the highest level, something close to what maybe a Tia Hutchison is at. And that, to me, is a great story that continues. It gets attention within the soccer community here, but I don't think it gets enough attention outside of it into the mainstream Canadian community. That's why it's a shame he didn't get to go to the Olympics, but that was always going to be a long shot. So Kyle Larin is my silver medalist so far in the Major League Soccer season for his performance and ability to sustain his freshman success.
My silver medal for this season going so far, Montreal Impact, but more Nacho Piatti and the Montreal Impact, with injuries as well, with a lot of players from Montreal, with never really being 100% either in form or because of injuries for the team. They were able to keep the team afloat, again, to use that analogy. They were close to top of the standings or always third or fourth the entire season, being able to either get draws instead of losses when it was a time. It was hard for them to string wins together. They're on a 2-win streak right now, but it was not easy for them to get those wins earlier on this season, but they plowed through with draws when everything seemed lost. 4-1 against Columbus, and it finished 4-4, like I mentioned earlier, because of outside interference, maybe. But you know what happened? They scored those goals, and they did so with Drogba injury, with drama surrounding Drogba in the offseason, with a lot of questioning, with players underperforming, Johan Venegas, Lucas Ontivero. They were still able to eke out the result when they truly mattered. And now, with 2 games in hand of the first place team, New York City FC, they're only 4 points down. So everything is still up for grabs, and it's open for Montreal, like it is for Toronto, to continue this season with informed player, rested Didier Drogba, and go and make a run for it.
Yeah, we've talked many times about how Montreal is absolutely designed to be successful now, and they needed to get through the summer. That is the key. We're not quite through the summer yet, but we're getting close. And the key in Major League Soccer is to survive late mid-June to the 1st of September. If you can grind your way through those dog days, those hot games, those long road trips, when the playoffs, when the start of the season excitement's long past and the playoffs are a long ways away still, if you can survive that and still be in a position to sprint to the end, that is the key to a successful Major League Soccer season. And I think two of the three anyway, although Vancouver's not that far out, but two of the three Canadian teams have absolutely set themselves pretty well. And the Impact, they're in good position right now. If they can get close to the same form they did last year, they're absolutely one of the teams that you have to consider as on a short list of the teams most likely to be standing in the confetti at the end of the day. And that's a remarkable thing from where Montreal was a couple of years ago. When you think about that, the first year we did this podcast, Montreal was at the very bottom, and here we are.
Exactly. So to go with your try at it earlier, started from the bottom, now they're here.
Exactly. All right, let's move to my gold. My gold is going to be simple, and it should be obvious to most people that follow Major League Soccer this year. The best story of the first 2/3 of the season so far has been the remarkable turnaround of the Colorado Rapids.
We have the same gold.
Yeah, and you can't ignore it. And that's it. They continue to get ignored because everyone, I think, assumes they're going to blow up at one point, and their form isn't quite as good as they are right now, but they certainly are. They are continuing to be right there. And as I've said before, if you want to talk about playoffs and what them meaning, want to talk about playoffs, yeah. I heard it. I heard it as soon as I said it. Anyway, if you want to talk about playoffs, they're uniquely designed because of the altitude, because of the weather, because of the travel concerns to get into Denver at that time of year. They're uniquely set up to get on a roll that would allow them to be highly successful.
No, exactly, Duane. And what I'm really interested to with Colorado, and I want to give a little love to my man, Zach McMath. He's not getting enough love with the arrival of Tim Howard and Tim Howard taking over the Messiah and all that. Zach McMath gathered and helped in the majority of those 41 points that are for them right now in second position. Only 3 points behind Dallas, but 2 games in hand. So a little love for Zach. And how about hashtag love for Zach?
All right, hashtag love for Zach. And it's amazing both of us went through these medals without talking about Drogba or Giovinco in any individual sense. Obviously, there are two amazing stories that are happening right there. It's a great season.
Yeah, but they haven't equaled. Well, Giovinco's on his way to do it. Drogba, we'll see what happens in the next 2 months. But so far, they're not the top stories. They're there. They're close, but there's other things as well.
Exactly. All right. Should be a fun sprint in. The Major League Soccer, as to reiterate one more time, the summer is a funny time in Major League Soccer. It's about treading water in many ways. You're not going to win an MLS championship or a Supporters Shield in July and August, but you can lose them. That's an old cliche in sports, but it's true in Major League Soccer, especially. As I think we've said that 1,000 times in the show. You just don't want to lose touch. You want to set yourself up for the fall. And so far, so good, and that's the case. I do. We could have given a bronze medal to Vancouver as well, but I think we've belabored that.
For what? I'm gonna get it a wood to spindle, huh?
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, yes and no. When you know the situation and the fact that it's family and all that, I kind of felt bad for the guy too. So, there's wood. No wood. I don't know. Let's leave it like this.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. You could have. It's just they're kind of mediocre this year. They expected much more. We're just being Canadian-centric when we do that. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do this format for each of the 3 teams or something next week because we are going to be looking for shows like this. And if you have any ideas for what you'd like to hear us do, gold, silver, wood, bronze, gold, silver, bronze, wood medals in the next week on Soccer Today to let us know. But certainly, I hope you enjoyed this format. Any final thoughts, Kevin, before we say goodbye on the day and get back to our grind?
Well, I still in shock and awe on the number 9 next to the word Canada in the standing of the women's group 2. I just still can't believe it.
Yeah, and who had that in the pool? And if you listen to Five Rings today, there was a brief mention of it by Bo Duer about how he gave the silver medal for his overall Olympic performance to the women. We've talked a lot about that. If you don't listen to Five Rings, there has been a lot of soccer talk in it, especially on the days immediately after a Canada game. We do analyze the game a lot on that and try to here as well. But if you want to get more coverage and you're not really an Olympic freak like we are, but you still want more soccer coverage, find those days that Canada played, and you can get a little more detail in your coverage. And certainly tomorrow will be a very interesting day in Canadian soccer history. And if they can pull that upset against France, and is it an upset? I don't know. But if they can pull the win against France, regardless, the sky's the limit at that point.
Exactly. So tomorrow, 11 a.m. for Five Rings Daily and noon for Soccer Today. Until then, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.